So how do we do that? Sort of what do we need to build those pillars to be successful professionals? And then what does all this mean for brands? And I'm gonna come on to that in a sec. But I wanted to start with sort of the three areas of information, or so almost the pillars that you need to think about in terms of making professionals successful today. You need a professional identity, and you need a network. You need people to talk to, you need colleagues to talk to ask questions, you need some dialogue. You need to be able to trust the information, and you also need to be able to take all this data and all these bits of statistics and turn those into actionable insights. So the first piece is around identity, professional identity. And how many of you guys here don't have a LinkedIn profile? Anyone? Everyone has one? One person? Oh, okay, cool, 2 people. So most people have a LinkedIn profile, right? Okay. I mean, this is really, it's becoming your online CV in some ways, but it's not just about where you've been on your career and what you've been doing, but it allows you to connect with people who you may not know personally. Before I joined LinkedIn, and this is a true story, not a sales pitch at all, I read an article in New Media Age about digital, and there was a gentleman from Accenture who had made a lot of really interesting comments in the article, but I didn't know him. I hadn't run into him in the industry before. And the first thing I did was, I can connect with him on LinkedIn. I sent him an in-mail, which is sort of what you'd see here, your internal email service. I read your article. I thought it was really great. I'd love to chat with you about some of the points that you raised in your article. The next day, I got an email. Oh, fantastic. Glad you liked the article. Let's set up a time to chat. It's amazing, the power, and I don't think that everyone's utilizing it in this way yet, but it's certainly what's coming. And companies can do the same thing. So companies can create their own identity on LinkedIn. I think here we've got Dell as an example. I can find out who in my network has recommended something from Dell, how many recommendations are there out there. So if I'm in IT and I want to find out about something new, I can check it out here and find out who else in my network has experienced that. They've got 154,000 plus followers. And then you've got an opportunity here to kind of promote your brand, promote the products and services that you might want to in an environment that might stimulate conversation. And that's really what you want to do, is be able to highlight some of the products and services here, but be able to take that offline and have a conversation with your colleagues about the products and services that you might be interested in. Trust was the second thing I talked about after identity. And I think this is really important about a social media network or a professional network, however we'd like to be called. But the ability to trust the information that you find on LinkedIn is critical, because it's business information that we're sharing. It's business statistics, it's articles, it's different things that we're trying to promote as companies, as brands, and 77% feel that information on LinkedIn has a high level of confidence compared to some of the other social media networks. And I think that is certainly a differentiator for us, is to maintain that trust, that credibility. The third piece was we had identity, so your personal or professional and your network identity. We had trust, and then the last piece was insights. And there's a couple of things I just wanted to share with you today around, maybe you don't know that you can actually do this on LinkedIn. We've had a couple of references around social media and kind of sentiment, understanding what people are saying in the natural environment about your brand. You can go to something called Signal on LinkedIn. You can look up a brand or a company. In this case, I looked up Philips because I just wanted to see what were the hot topics. And down the center, I get the latest updates, articles, posts about Philips, about that particular brand. I can see that here they're talking about Philips TV Buy-in Guide, winner of the Red Dot Award, whatever that is. But you can find out a lot of interesting information that professionals may be sharing about your brand, driving that relevancy, and finding out what your network is saying. What are other people saying about the brand? The other area that I think is absolutely fascinating is, it's called LinkedIn Today. And if you haven't noticed that, when you log into your profile page, there's usually 3 articles that are kind of highlighted at the top. You can go in, and this is my LinkedIn today, from this morning, and it gives me information that's relevant to me as a marketer, as a researcher, as someone in the internet industry. I can see what my network is reading and what they think is important. So of course I can go to some of these separate sites here, see what they're saying on Mashable or WSJ, New York Times, but I have all of that information in one place to help me know what the hot topics are, know what the information is on LinkedIn today. And I think that's a fantastic tool to really use to pull in insights about what's going on in the marketplace. So now a little bit about kind of turning data into insights. And I want to use some examples to just show you, thinking about the C-suite or C-level executives, some different ways that we've pulled data to turn that into an insight about this particular group of people on LinkedIn. So what's in a name? This I thought was a fantastic bit of research that was done. I don't know if anyone saw this, but it was a popular infographic a few months ago. What the Insights team did was they looked at all of the different names on LinkedIn from the profile page, and they basically figured out which ones were overrepresented for people with C-level CEO titles, and then they figured out what the most popular names were based on the average LinkedIn profile. So for the top CEO names on LinkedIn, for men, you've got Peter, Bob, Jack, Bruce, Fred. And then for the women, you've got Deborah, Sally, Deborah, Cynthia, Carol. And I love the difference in the two, because the analyst that worked on this actually spoke to a sociologist or psychologist, and they evaluated that the men's names were very popular, well-known names, but shortened. So Bob, short for Robert. Then on the women's side, these are all their full name, right? So it's more professional if you're known as Deborah as opposed to Deb. Anyway, I thought it was fascinating. We also looked around the world to see not everybody has the same name. So there's different trends. You've got Howard in the US and Ray in Canada as popular CEO names. And then we did this very clever evaluation of the length of the name. So based on your industry, how long would the name be? Fascinating stuff. So if you work in restaurants, Philippe, Laurent, French, I don't know. Engineering, 6 letters. But for sales and CEOs, now I don't know what this is telling us, but I'm giving you the insight here that we found out. They tend to be short names. Pretty interesting stuff. Just about your LinkedIn profile and what's in the name. In terms of how CEOs and C-level executives are using LinkedIn, I thought this was fantastic research. This is also from the Business Elite Europe study that was just released. But you've got, LinkedIn emerging as one of the leading publications to be able to reach C-level executives, more so than some of the more traditional online sites that you would think of, Wall Street Journal, Economist. It just shows to me the importance of online and social in the world of C-level executives. And then what do we know about them on LinkedIn? What are the behaviors that we're seeing? What are the different stories that we could tell about the C-level executives? I mean, we know that that member growth year on year is growing. So in terms of C-suite executives joining LinkedIn, that's up 33%. These are much more engaged audience. Now these are all benchmarked against the average UK profile, the average UK member. They tend to be 42 in average age, 15 years of work experience. They're 146% more connected, and they're more likely to be engaged and to recommend brands and products and services and stories. They're also more likely to visit. So again, it's that need to keep up with what's happening in the world, to be ahead of the curve using digital. And then again, this is another snapshot of what we know that C-level executives are doing on LinkedIn, specific to the different areas of the site. I thought this was quite interesting because, again, one of the questions I've gotten since I started was around LinkedIn for jobs, and are people using LinkedIn to find jobs? Is that the only thing they're doing? What are the other things that they're using LinkedIn for? And number one was here for profile viewing. Inbox for emailing, their homepage, and then searching for people. And the other piece I thought was interesting is that C-level executives are actually joining communities to find out more information about what's happening in a specific industry. It could be a community on digital connections, it could be a community about medical equipment, it could be anything that interests them, but they are very engaged in LinkedIn and learning more about talking to their colleagues, finding out information from them. And then the last thing I know about sort of insights and data that we know from LinkedIn is the most searched companies. And I pulled this, there's actually a link that you can go to on LinkedIn Labs, and you can see this automatically swirling around in terms of the hot topics and searches. But what does this mean for brands, for companies, if people are searching for you on LinkedIn? How do you create your profile so that it's easy to find, so that people can find you? I mean, professionals are consumers too, so it's interesting to be able to make that connection. Most search companies, what is the place for brands in terms of how they interact with a professional networking? I mean, how can you turn your employees into brand advocates? And that's something that we've been working a lot at LinkedIn to figure out the best way to do that. So back to the end map that I showed you at the beginning, the power of connections and how can you make this? I think the interesting thing about social media, and particularly for LinkedIn, it's not just the number of connections that we all have, but it's actually the recommendations that we're making. And every single activity has some sort of viral effect. So I make a recommendation, it's going not just to one person who I'm having coffee with in the coffee shop, but it's going to lots of people. And I wanted to show a few examples coming from a marketing side. So we've got Mark Allen, who's the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Rocket Fuel. He's based in San Francisco. And he posts on his status that he's about to go on a trip to Vancouver. He's done that through TripIt, which is an application that LinkedIn has on their site as well. So what can we find out about that? Well, as a marketer, as JetBlue, you might be interested that Mark is going on a trip. So you could ask him on a poll, what's most important to you when you travel for business? Have a dialogue, listen to what people are saying. And then you can get instant insights back based on your poll. So anyone can start a poll on LinkedIn, and anyone can have this type of information that comes back. As a marketer, it could be a really useful way to get instant insights on what people are doing, what they like, what they don't like. And then you also get that viral connection. So Lori is in my network, and I get an update that she's voted on this poll about if you're a frequent business traveler, what would you rather have your hotel offer you? And then she can vote on the poll, and I get the information back. So it's all about not just the connections that you have, but the impact that you have on these connections and that ability to be able to connect with them on various points. And as a brand, trying to make sure that you're including yourself in those conversations. And this is another example of a discussion that was started. So it was hosted or sponsored by Marriott. If you could add any amenity to a hotel guest room, what would it be? And then we've got an article here that was shared, 5 toiletries we wish all hotels included. And we've got even a discussion about it, so you can talk about this with other professionals. Another example, JetBlue Airways has 4,000 plus followers when we looked at this. You can see their products and recommendations. Oh, and then you can find out that Rebecca, who's in my network, has actually recommended a promotion from JetBlue Airlines, which was about first bag flies for free. Because a lot of airlines now are charging for bags that you're carrying, especially in the US, there's a charge if you carry a bag. So this is about the promotion. So I can find that out from Rebecca, which is a great way for JetBlue to promote and host their different sponsorship there. So that was just hopefully a little bit about the data and the connections and the various points that LinkedIn are making.